So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Steve Philp and I'm the Partnership Director here at Portugal Pathways and your host for today's webinar, where we'll be discussing the recent media speculation about possible changes based on a draft document that has indicated that at some point the Portuguese government may increase the 5-year qualifying time to apply for permanent citizenship to 10 years. However, it's important to be clear that this is only a draft and that nothing has been passed into law. Also, no official legislation has been presented to Parliament. And finally, any eventual change will take time and it will follow due process. And as history shows us, it is unlikely to be applied retrospectively. So before we talk to today's panel, which includes Henrique Nunes, who heads up a team of immigration lawyers at CMS, and CMS are based out of Lisbon. And Henrique is one of a number of legal and financial partners of Portugal Pathways who sit on a task force that is talking and lobbying the Portuguese government in terms of a discussion document and potential upcoming parliamentary debate on the subject. Now, the focus of the task force is really to protect the interests of those who have already shown intent and commitment to Portugal through investment, residency and integration. Today's webinar is obviously designed to give you, the audience, some more understanding of how things work in terms of in Portugal, and to make sure that you're aware that provided that you plan early with trusted partners and that you take early action, you will be able to achieve your desired outcomes in a timely and efficient manner. Joining Henrique on the panel today, we have Paul Stannard. Now, Paul is the chairman and founder of Portugal Pathways and the Portugal Investment Owners Club, which supports global investors, entrepreneurs and families who are seeking long-term residency and tax efficiency in Portugal. Now, Paul has held senior positions in international media, having taken 2 media companies public, and is joining the panel today. Just lastly, Paul has also been dealing with many of the golden visa investments, investment funds and other supply chain professionals involved in tax and immigration in Portugal. So just before we get going with regards to today's main topic, we obviously welcome any kind of comments and chat from the audience. We'll do our best to answer those during the webinar. However, if we don't get a chance to answer them, we will pick those up and our team behind the scenes will reach out to you individually and answer those questions. If there's any sort of specific questions about your own circumstances, may relate to your golden visa application itself, we're more than happy to sort of have a one-to-one sort of discovery call with you and a chat about your specific circumstances and any investments or related immigration and tax considerations that you're undertaking. So let's get going with today's webinar, and let's now turn to our panel to explore the facts and realities behind, I should say, the recent media headlines about this draft document. So, Paul, can I start with you? Can you sort of give us a brief overview of the situation that's obviously arisen in the past week or so?
Yeah, well, as a guy who was in media for 30 years, I can still say the world of media and social media can create what I call white noise sometimes. And it's important to reaffirm that anything you read in the media about this has to be subjective and conjecture currently, because how can anyone truly give the answer, even this panel, until, it's gone through, fully through debating and then through Parliament and then into law. So it's just a discussion document at the moment. We've been in discussions with lots of our partners, immigration lawyers like Henrique and also other professional partners. But there's, from what we've understood, there's never in these discussions, there's been no intention to alter the golden visa residency part of the program. It's really more to just tighten certain things up. But Henrique is going to be more qualified to talk about that part of it than I. And obviously the thing is, the intention is, somehow that they might be extending the qualifying period that currently stands when you can apply for permanent citizenship.
But thank you.
Well, the other thing is worth saying, Portugal has always been pragmatic in applying grandfathering rules. So if we look back at all of the recent changes, whether it was the NHR or other changes, golden visa, they've always given, they've given people the opportunity to show their intent, and they've always been respectful. But obviously, there's a long way to go on this one, and things in Portugal don't always happen quickly. So.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Henrik, obviously wearing your legal hat, and based on what Paul said, would you agree, or do you have any other sort of concept?
I completely, as usual, I completely agree with what Paul said. I could just add a few details. So basically, right now what we have, it's a law proposal that was announced by the government, and it's going to be presented in the parliament. Okay. After that, and it's expected to have some kind of approval of the text in the parliament. No one knows exactly which text, but something would be approved. After that, it will need to be discussed by a general committee, and then article by article, in what we call the Comissão de Especialidade, which is like to analyze article by article what should be the text of each one of the rules. After this, we will have another voting at the parliament that will be approved or not. In principle, it will be approved, but after that, it will be sent to the president, and the president can do one of two things. He can either approve it and say, "Okay, it's good to go; it can take into force," or he's going to send it for a preventive assessment by the Constitutional Court. Okay, this is to say that, just as Paul was saying, the law will not change tomorrow. There's a lawmaking process to be respected, and the idea is that we keep you updated along the way, just for you to know exactly what is going to be the final law approved and taking into force. What I can definitely tell you is that, also according from our recent experience, the final law to be approved in the parliament and the final law taking into force, as most of the times, like 95% of the times, has nothing to do with the law proposal that is initially presented, because it has all the different inputs from the different players in the market, from the different parties within the parliament. So the final text is usually far more different from the initial one. Also, for you to understand that, as Paul was saying, we have been discussing this, so there are a lot. This is going to be the first step, is going to be the discussion, the debate and discussion in the parliament, which will be the first step of many to be accomplished within this lawmaking process that I was deciding. And while this is happening, I belong to a few task forces that are basically producing important documents, not only on the impact of the golden visa, but trying to explain also the legal expectations of the golden visa holders that we have now and that should be protected. There is indeed at least an acceptance in hearing to the arguments and to what we are saying, as well. The government also wants to try to avoid litigation stages or future issues with legal expectations that were not protected and should be protected about. So this is to say, for now, people should keep calm. People should just pay attention to the news. This is a long lawmaking process, and so it will always be better than it is at this moment. And the idea is that we move forward. Either the amendments are not a big deal for everyone looking at the golden visa right now, and they move forward, or if they are still in doubt and they want to see if they move forward or not, depending on the amendments to be approved, I would move forward. What I'm advising with my clients and what is happening in most of the cases is that they are moving forward with everything. They want to go up to the moment where the bank account, the Portuguese bank account is open, the 500,000 are inside in Portugal, ready to be filed, and we can assess once more when we get there and with more information on the status of this lawmaking process that I was mentioning. And this is, but in broad terms, the main features I wanted to add to what Paul said, Steve.
Thank you, Henry. Paul, sort of going back to you, what sort of advice would you give someone listening right now and considering investing in Portugal, whether it be through a golden visa, the NHR sort of 2.0 IFICI tax regime in terms of setting up a business, or even sort of general estate planning, researching property ownership, or obviously other matters relating to Portugal?
Well, whether it's considerations that are linked by media noise, or whether it's not sexy thing to say, but it's start early, plan early, act early, and you'll get the best outcomes. And if you come through partners, trusted partners that are used to navigating this, that have been through this whole process of change, because governments change things all the time. There's a famous saying internationally, the law of unintended consequences. So I can remember when the Portuguese government nearly 3 years ago on CNN announced that it was the end of NHR, and we had 700 inquiries that day saying what because it wasn't clearly defined. It was a discussion, but it was said on CNN. Now this is different. It's a draft. It's got to go through a number of processes. But if we take that last one, the government were very practical in the end. And when they listened and debated, then we ended up with grandfathering rules that actually allowed people that had showed intent to join NHR, that they were still able to do in a sensible fashion. And I'm very confident that Portugal's government, when you get past the politics of the three different parties involved, I think there will be the practicalities, and I think these task force and lawyers like Henrique and also other professional organisations involved in this space, and including in major investment organisations, will make sure that a sensible conclusion, and it's still a good thing to want to embrace the cultural side of Portugal. But again, I think that'll be practical as well. And, making sure that we're bringing people to the country that are bringing value, not issues.
Thank you, Paul.
Steve, let me just add something to what Paul was saying, because it's important. Just as it happened with the non-habitual resident regime, as Paul was saying, that we have a new regime now that we had some clarity on in the beginning of the year, which is a good example, which is basically really similar to what the NHR was, the non-habitual resident regime was, but including capital gains. So not only we have that example, but we also have the example of the golden visa regime that was supposed to the government came in the beginning of the year saying that they were going to cancel the golden visa regime. And what happened in the end was that the golden visa was kept exactly the same. The only thing they did was taking off the real estate of the program completely, and increasing the minimum amount required as an investment. So and also a grandfathering regime was granted. So this is to say that what we are expecting and what all the players are now fighting for and challenging is exactly the fact that we need to have exceptions for the golden visa. I can give you a few examples. You can have the 7 years, because you have right now two periods on the table: 7 years for Brazilians and ex-Portuguese colonies applicants, and you have the 10 years for all the other applicants, where the Americans and the UK applicants would be included. Okay, one of the requests, of course, we are trying first of all to crave out the golden visa out of these amendments, like they recently did with the family reunification request, where they already came to say that the amendments were supposed to be taken off the golden visas are not going to have those amendments to the family reunification request applicable to it. This is the first one, craving out the golden visa out of these amendments. The second would be to, for example, consider that all the golden visa filed up to the moment these amendments to the citizenship were taken into force, that should have the old law applicable to their cases. And one of the other requests and one of the other ideas that is on the table is to give to apply the 7 years to the citizenship. Okay, no one exactly knows. These are all ideas, all requests that are being discussed. But most certainly, what we will have is a few exceptions and a few transition periods for these amendments to take into force. And of course, and we will update you along the way. The idea is, as Paul was saying, that we move forward as soon as possible, always monitoring, of course, these amendments to the law, just to make sure that in case we have any kind of protection regime, we try to make you all jump in this grandfathering / protection regime while we can. Okay,
Thank you, Henrik. And then, Henrik, I'll come back to you because I think it's useful to know in terms of setting up a NIF and opening up a Portuguese bank account to begin the process of a visa. Sort of how long sort of typically would that take? You know, whether that's a golden visa requiring the 500,000 investment in approved funds, or a D visa, which obviously involves spending at least 183 days a year in Portugal and becoming a tax resident. So how long does that part of the process typically take?
So let me tell you, it will depend on how quick the clients are sending us the documents. We have that problem many times, but asking for the tax ID through our key contacts and all that, it should take, even if you are, especially if we are in urgency, it should take a few days. Opening the bank account, it should take around 1 month-ish, okay? But as you know, we are recently working with the bank, with whom some clients of ours had really good experience. So our idea, especially now that we are in an urgency to file the requests, we are working in the banks to try to reduce that period. But I would count with a month from asking for the tax ID and having the bank account ready. But the idea would be, Steve, so we would ask for the tax ID, we would start opening the bank account, but at the same time, we would start collecting all the documents and we would start choosing the funds so that we don't waste time while we are waiting for the bank account to be open. But answering directly to your question, 1 month-ish. Right now, we are working with the bank that should help us getting that period a little bit, like for 3 weeks, something like that. That's what we are expecting.
Thank you, Henrik. That's really helpful. Of course, obviously, the timelines, as you quite rightly said, Henrik, depends on how motivated clients are and how quickly they can provide the required documents. But obviously, the key message from the panel seems to be, plan early, work with trusted partners, and don't get too distracted by media speculation before the laws have even been sort of discussed in Parliament. Now, we know that obviously Portugal can be, relatively slow and sometimes bureaucratic. So it's obviously vital to have the right people guiding you through every step, whether it's residency, tax, business, property, or settling into the lifestyle. Paul, before we sort of sum up and get sort of final takeaways from you and Henrik, is there anything else that you'd like to add to what's already been said?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to this thing about the pragmatic nature of it. People before said, I can remember Henrik and some of his colleagues saying, I don't know, this new NHR scheme might not have the same benefits of the old one. And then a month later, suddenly capital gains was thrown into the mix, which wasn't even, you had the benefit of zero capital gains on non-Portugal derived income that came out later. The qualification and in terms of who qualified for it was very limited in that first few weeks or months. And this was a lot further forward than this particular proposal. But the end solution was in a lot of people's opinions, a lot better than the old NHR scheme, all bar the pension part of it. So, I would say, having been in the media, unfortunately, people want to jump in, and sometimes media want the clickbait, and sometimes they'll take a quote from somebody out of context, and then another media company then replicates it. So I think coming on webinars like this, following the journey, we're not going to answer every question today because the debate's not been had. So one of I see a few people there's a few questions coming in the chat about how long it takes people. That's why we have partnerships. There are some people that have been stuck in this system for a long time because they weren't necessarily getting the right advisors waiting for their application. So there are public law claims. There are many different things you can do to expedite your situation if you're already down that process, but you do need to be speaking to the right partners. So if any of the people in the chat have any specifics, we might not be able to get down into the weeds of their specific situation today, but after this, we will come back to you. And if you want a one-to-one with any of our advisors, there are many things. I have had many Americans that were with one advisor saying, well, I can't do anything about it. I've been waiting 2 years. And then we spoke to someone like Henrique, and 2 or 3 months later, the whole thing got resolved. So it's all about staying calm, planning early, and then you'll get the right outcomes.
That's it. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, just to reiterate to everybody, we're about to go into the Q&A, and we'll try and get through a few of those questions. But if you have got any concerns or you'd like to speak to someone about your specific situation, again, just please click on that link and have a no obligation call, either with ourselves, or we can involve our partners such as Henrique. Just obviously put your minds at rest and obviously look to move you through the application process. As I said, we're going to move on to the Q&A, and just to remind you that if we don't get to all the questions, which we probably won't do, there are a lot of questions in the chat, that again, the team at Portugal Pathway will be reaching out individually to those who have left questions that we've been unable to answer today, and subsequently, reaching out to everybody. And as Paul just said, we have got the capacity and the insight and the ability to have these discovery calls with you guys, just to sort of allay any concerns and obviously help you into the application process if you're not already in there, or help you sort of push your way through it if you're already in there and you're perceived as being maybe a little bit stuck or a little bit confused. So moving on to these sorts of questions, we've got a couple of questions here. I'm just going to pick a couple out. We've got a question from Mandy, and Mandy's asking, she's saying that she's already started the golden visa process and that she submitted documents through one of Portugal Pathways immigration partners. She's well into selecting a fund from the top 30 index. It took 3 weeks to set up the NIF and the bank account, so everything's now in place. And she's asking, can she proceed with the investment and applications to ensure that they're grandfathered in and protected? Henrique, do you want to sort of take that one? And then obviously, Paul, you can come in behind if you want to add anything.
Yes, of course, Steve. But the answer to that question, is always dependent on what is going to be the grandfathering regime foreseen in the law, right? What we can assure is that after filing the golden, we are talking about the golden visa, right? The initial concession of the golden visa, filing the
yes, yeah, exactly.
So what we can assure is that any amendments to the immigration law would never be applicable to her, but amendments to the citizenship law, because technically we are talking about two different laws, immigration law and citizenship law. Once you file the golden visa, you assure that amendments to the immigration law will not be applicable to your case. Amendments to the citizenship law will not be applicable to the golden visa files that existed before those amendments, only in accordance with the grandfathering rules that there are in the law. Okay. But having this said, the idea is that if the investment is already being made, and if Everything is ready to be submitted. The idea is that it is submitted as soon as possible so that any grandfathering regime would be applicable to our case. But right now, no one exactly knows what are going to be the grandfathering regimes of the law. So that will only be possible to answer in a straightforward way once we have a better clarity on what are going to be the grandfathering rules.
Thank you, Henry.
And I'd also reiterate, a lot of people that come for the golden visa come for a plan B, so that they're transitioning, and they don't know if they're going to come permanently yet. But as we find, they come to Portugal, they fall in love with it, and then it happens as a more permanent thing. So you can renew your visa. You don't lose the benefits of the opportunity per se. The thing under consideration is just how long it will take to have a physical passport. You can still use the cards to come and go once they're issued. So it's even the things that are being talked about, which again, no one knows whether they will all end up where they were or even thrown into the mix. So
I would exactly as Paul is saying. I think that what I would just basically, I think that what you are trying to say is that the goal that is trying to be achieved, which is the citizenship and the second residency in Portugal, it will always be achieved. Okay, it doesn't matter even if the amendments are approved. The goals are going to be achieved at the same time. The only thing is going to happen is that that achievement is going to be a little bit delayed if it's approved, but only that. All the rest will be kept exactly the same.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you, Paul. So one more question before we wrap. Obviously, the webinar was in place for 30 minutes, and we know that everyone is busy getting on with their lives. And so I'm going to have one more question, and that's from Jason. Jason's actually saying it's refreshing to get clear answers, especially with so much conflicting information online. So if he was to move ahead with the golden visa now, and then later open a Portuguese entity and switch from UK tax to the new NHR regime, can Portugal Pathways help him find the right partners for each step, all in one place? Paul, do you want to take this one on?
Yeah, so just to be absolutely clear, the NHR 2.0 or IFICI tax regime is completely different to the D visas or the golden visas. One's a visa program. The NHR 2.0 is a tax regime. Under the golden visa, you can stay tax status where you currently are and transition to open a business later and join the NHR program at a later stage. So that's the beauty of the golden visa. You can pick and choose when you're ready and where you want to pay tax. But ultimately, yes, the answer is yes to his question. We can support them, but they don't have to be run exactly at the same point in time. That's the beauty of the golden visa program. It allows you that flexibility to get your estate planning right, and if you've got business plans, then you can time them separately through the NHR 2.0 tax regime.
Lovely, thank you, Paul. So I want to sort of wrap up now, and as I said, obviously, for those that have left questions in the chat, we will get back to you, and those that have requested a call, we will obviously get that scheduled in for you. But as I said, I'd like to wrap up. Before we go, I'd like to get really just sort of like a final comment, a little takeaway, if you like, from each of our panelists, so from Paul and Henrik, just to let the audience sort of leave today with sort of just clarity. So, Paul, do you want to go first?
Well, the first clarity is don't read every comment you read in the media before it becomes fact. People will grandstand. And what I would say is come on webinars with proper professional people that are responsible in terms of what the outcomes are. Nobody can 100% know the outcomes, but plan early, act early, and you'll be in the best place to protect yourself and your family in the chosen path that you want to explore.
Thank you. Henrique?
Yes, I would. So I think that the main message is exactly what Paul said. Is it's important to keep calm and monitor the situation with us, with other professionals. It's important to monitor the situation and to move forward up to at least to have the flexibility enough to decide if you want to move forward. To have time to move forward in case you have everything in condition, and once we have more clarity on what is going to be the final document. Why do I say this? Because if by any chance we have all of a sudden a few months to as a grandfathering regime to file the requests, it would be important to be already ahead in the tasks in order to be able to file it in time. Having this said, what I wanted to say is that this government and in Portugal, there is still a strong will of our government in having expats and having foreign investment in Portugal. Okay, what is happening? And in the beginning of the year, it was even discussed extending the modalities of golden visa. Okay, so everyone was a bit surprised by this amendment to the citizenship law, but this amendment to the citizenship law is mostly raised by political reasons and with this intentions of our populist radical wing party, and this especially political reasons. And the idea of the government is just to control a little bit and to make sure that the regime is safe and sound for regarding all external forces. But the idea is that the idea of this government is to protect investors and golden visa and high qualified workers, as that already happened with the family unification request diploma that is also being discussed. So the idea is to keep calm, to speak to us, to try to monitor the situation and monitor and try to understand what is going to be exactly the final document, so that you can make decisions accordingly.
Thank you, Henry.
So, Steve, just one thing on that point. Last week, AIMA did a presentation about the economic benefits of positive migration in terms of talent, what's happening, how it's driving down inflation, pushing up GDP, the value creators and the talent that this country is. The government's own immigration department were presenting this to people only last Thursday evening. So, and the government that's in place, whilst it does rely on the left side of politics and the extreme right side, it is still in control of its destiny, and in reality brought the golden visa program to the country. And we're all seeing for ourselves what benefit that brings in terms of value creation and new talent coming to match with the country's already, well-established ecosystems and innovations and growing international standards for almost everything, from build standards to education to innovation. And I think there'll be so much debate around that the self-protection, no one can say it's guaranteed, but I think the end result will be a positive one.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. That's a really good point. And just for everybody on the webinar today that hasn't signed up to our newsletter, if you want to keep abreast of exactly what's going on and want up to date reporting on the current situation, we will be reporting that through people such as Henrique, as we've just said, who's got his a direct line into the government. So again, if you need to be kept up to date, please sign up for our newsletters, and as soon as we know, you'll know. So I want to obviously thank everybody for attending today's webinar, and just to reiterate, if you haven't and you want to, please book a discovery call with one of our experts. And just to say that we've got a couple of webinars coming up. The next one will be on the 8th of June, and that is around tax and estate planning in Portugal. Again, links have been shared, but please go to our website and register that if that is of interest. And then also on the 22nd of July, our next webinar is securing Portugal's golden visa in 2025. So by then we shall have a bit more clarity on the situation. And as I said, to keep abreast of things, please visit our website and sign up to our newsletters. And again, reach out to us if you've got any concerns or need any specific guidance on your personal situation. But again, thank you for joining. Thanks to Paul and to Henrique for taking time to explain that. And hopefully we've allayed any fears and just obviously put some of those sort of wrongs to right, as it were. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.